Hey, all you Arizona lovers. This is the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose.
And I'm your producer, Brittany.
And here at Finding Arizona Podcast, we collect the local stories of all entrepreneurs and from around the valley. So join us at findingarizonapodcast.com, where you can hear every episode and see it as well at
YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment below who you want to see next on our show. And when you're ready to start your podcast, you found the right spot. Found House, your next podcast production company.
Now, let's get back to the show. Score big with SeatGeek. Whether it's concerts, sports, or live events, SeatGeek has you covered. Use code FindingArizona to get a fantastic $20 discount on your SeatGeek tickets. Catch your favorite live events hassle-free with extra savings. Visit SeatGeek.com and make every experience unforgettable. Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose. As always, we bring in fantastic guests every week, and today is no different. As you can see in front of and behind me, we are in a different location. We're actually sitting down with Tim of the Riester agency, and I want to say thank you, first off, Tim, for allowing us to take a little bit of your time here on this Friday.
Well, I'm honored to have you here and to meet your wife and to do this together. So thank you both for coming.
Yes. And so I have, like I told you off air, I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to ask you the question that I typically ask everyone who comes in through our little podcast here. Can you give us a little bit of your origin story? I know from my own research, you're an East Coast guy. Right?
Sort of. Yeah,
sort of. So you had a little bit of history there. And I'd love to understand that. But I'd also like to ask you about your family dynamics of like how this kind of advertising creative agency, like how that with your grandfather and your mother and your father, how that all came into play.
Thank you. Sure. Well, it's true. I was born in Ohio and raised in a really small town called Lexington, Ohio, about 3,500 people there. So many of my friends growing up, before they could come out, they had to finish baling hay and stuff like that, right? So it was a fun physical place to be a young boy. Mm-hmm. The guys you hung out with liked to wrestle and do physical, we always had our own football league outside and that kind of stuff because it was a very Midwestern little neighborhood. Yeah. I came to Arizona to attend Arizona State University. Okay. So I was 18 and a half years old when I moved here. And I was very fortunate when I was 15 and a half, 16 years old in that little town in Ohio. I got a job at a radio station. Okay. And I got a job writing and producing commercials at the radio station. And so when I applied to Arizona State University to go to college, I also applied for a job because I needed money to be able to go to college. Yeah. And was fortunate that I was hired by Eden's Broadcasting. Okay. And worked full-time through college at Eden's Broadcasting, producing commercials, writing commercials, selling commercials. And it's just been amazing ever since. And how much more do you want to know? Yeah. Should I just keep going?
That kind of covers your personal history.
How I got here, right?
Yeah, how you got here. Your parents and just kind of how they developed your interest in the world of creative involvement and just being a part of this world that we call creativity.
So my mother and father both had a huge influence on me, I think, as any kid, right? But my mother was very unique. She was a hippie. Mm-hmm. I have memories, my parents divorced very, very young, but I remember before they did, live nudes in the house while my mom was painting. And she became an instructor at the Columbus College of Art and Design in Ohio.
Oh, awesome.
And taught people graphic design. Yeah. And she was a designer for Griswold Eshelman, which was a big regional ad agency at the time. And one of their big clients was McDonald's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I learned the industry from her at a very young age. Her father, my grandfather, was a touring big band musician. Oh. And he was one of these people who could play anything, just incredible. And when my mother was born, his wife said, "You need to stop touring." Mm. and get a job at home. And at the time, music talent was huge in ad agencies.
Yeah.
Because everything had a music jingle.
A jingle, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he was hired at this upstart agency in Pittsburgh called Ketchum McLeod,
Okay.
which became Ketchum Worldwide.
Yeah.
So he got in at the right place at the right time with a lot of talent.
Nice.
And worked his way up from originally writing and scoring music to becoming creative director at Ketchum.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And so I had this strange family background of all this creative energy.
Yeah.
And then a father who was totally opposite. He was a certified public accountant, owned his own firm, was treasurer of a hospital board,
Nice.
And also of a bank.
Oh, wow.
So I had this like business discipline influence with this wildly creative
You had the
thing
yin
going
and the
on.
yang.
The yin and the yang was like fed to me every day.
I love that because that's how I feel about my own family dynamic. Is just my parents are like two sides of a different coin, whereas my mom is like this calm, very like a centered person, where my dad is this wild, very energetic, just creative person as well. And I get that both insight to kind of create this really well mesh of like the love of the creative and the understanding of like a business mind and having to push forward in any kind of challenge or anything like that. So I imagine that you've gotten similar kind of ethics and similar kind of talents as well. And so that's pretty fun.
We were both very lucky because so many people in both of our industries, either have, usually to be successful in what both of us do, you have to be really strong creatively. Mm-hmm. But if they don't have that business side, it tends not to survive very long.
Yeah,
because they don't know how to manage finance. They don't know how to manage the discipline side of business.
Exactly. And so that kind of really entails, I find what interesting about a lot of the people who have the entrepreneurial spirit about when they come in to talk with me is because I love understanding the root and kind of the history of the individual, because that really branches out into what they go out and do as a personal side of their business. And so that kind of really influences my interest in you, because you have this very beautiful dynamic with your family and how your parents taught you and brought you into this world and showed you all of these different ways of going about business and about creativity.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would love to understand how you found out about ASU, and because it's such a far away from Ohio, and how that kind of influenced you as far as wanting to come out here to the West Coast and what brought that about.
Yeah, it's funny because it was a health reason.
Oh.
So I have to this day really, really bad allergies, food allergies and environmental allergies.
Wow.
And my allergist in Ohio, because I was working on the radio already, said if you want clear sinuses and to be able to speak without sounding like you constantly have a cold, you should look at one of the southwestern states.
Okay.
And so I would come out and visit my senior in high school during spring break. I came out and interviewed at a bunch of radio stations at the same time I applied at ASU.
Okay.
And was fortunate to get a job and be accepted at the school. So
that's awesome.
That's how I ended up here. And then once you grow up back east, and you wake up every day and almost every day is gray, and then you come here, I mean, it's just you're never going to leave Phoenix after that. Yeah,
that's the one plug that I always want to tell my East Coast friends that I still have a few of them that I'm like, I mean, once you get out of that snow and you spend one winter where you're just enjoying life and soaking in all that sunlight, you never want to go back. It's a different change of mentality.
Every morning you look out the window, it's another beautiful day. I kept saying it over and over again. Totally.
That's really great. And so from those moments of like your jobs and developing your skill set and just getting a project underneath your belt and building that portfolio, what was the first inkling of wanting to start your own thing?
My mother kept saying it. And she kept saying, someday you need to be working in an agency. And it was funny. I ended up getting in trouble because the vice president running the radio station where I worked for Eden's And he's since passed away, and he's an icon in our industry.
Yes.
His name was Mike Horn.
Okay.
And I could not have had a better trainer and mentor. The man was amazing. But he heard my voice on another radio station on a commercial.
Nice.
And he called me in his office. Well, he didn't think that was nice. And he called me in his office and he said, "Why am I hearing your voice over there?"
No.
And I said, well, and the problem was that the radio station group that they owned in Phoenix, they had 2 stations at the time, and they were both 3 deep in the format, meaning the ratings were 3rd out of 3.
Okay.
And a media buyer generally won't buy that deep in a format. So to get them to buy the station, you need to do something else. Promotions, activities, maybe a special discount on the purchase. And these clients had agreed to be on the station because I wrote the campaign for them.
Oh, okay.
And said they could use it anywhere. I didn't know I couldn't because I was helping bring in the business for the station. I thought they wouldn't mind. And his philosophy was, well, the extra time I took to write and create the campaign, I could have been selling more ads.
Yeah.
And he thought I was wasting time.
Got it.
And I told him that, well, what I really enjoyed was helping the people.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have had the client otherwise if I hadn't helped them. Yeah. So I thought it was a win-win, and he disagreed. And then I said, well, I think I'd rather go help people. And so I was, you know, when you're that young, right? I mean, I was 19 or something at the time. And so I talked to my mother about it, and she kept saying, you know, this is a sign you need to eventually be doing this. And a couple of years later, I started Riester. So
that's awesome.
35 and a half years ago.
What was that? I mean, that's an incredible story that you take the first inkling of what I would probably imagine is a hand slap of like, don't do that again, and really push the envelope of like, I can do this. Like, I feel like I have an opportunity here to like go forth and start my own. Now, I would love to ask what he thought as soon as you told him, I'm going to go. Like, the conversation must have been dynamically different from like, hey, I think I'm going to go off and try and figure this out on my own.
Yeah, I think he thought I was too young. Yeah. It was a bad idea. I should just focus on selling. But later we had many breakfasts and lunches together, and he was really supportive and proud of what we had built here. That's awesome. And he knew how much I appreciated everything he taught me. I mean, he was truly amazing. And sometimes that sort of polarizing disagreement, even though it can be uncomfortable at the time, it can help you find your way. Yeah. And his honesty and what he felt he needed helped me discover what I wanted. So we both ended up in a good place.
A win-win.
Yeah, indeed.
I really find these conversations interesting from the perspective of like, you're starting off and doing something on your own. And it's really kind of a tremendous to hear from the, as I like to say, horse's mouth, about how you go and do these things. You take the leap of faith and that sort of thing too. And one of the things I find interesting about what you guys provide here, and I actually heard this from your PR person, and it's Christina, I think it was, who told us, is like, you really do try your best to give everyone the opportunity to really spread their wings and try and learn, and if not learn, also give them an opportunity to pitch you and come up with something creative on their own. And so I love that those two stories kind of like really bring to light what you provide over here at your agency.
I don't think it's our role to decide what someone else should be. Yeah. Or what limits they should have on themselves. Yeah. Instead, it's our job to try to help them discover where they can go and what they can do. Yeah. And if that means it's here, it's great. If it means it's somewhere else and that's better for them, that's fine. And that's great. And we should help them with that. We've had people who came in here as PR interns who became award-winning advertising copywriters.
That's awesome.
We've had people who started as writers here and became celebrated playwrights and novelists. We've had people who came in here right out of college and then ended up with amazing careers throughout Europe in advertising. Yeah. After 35 years, the alumni, I'm so proud of the people. We have just this week, we had an event for a retired member of our leadership team who is an absolutely amazing and inspiring contemporary artist.
Wow.
And he has 30 or 40 paintings on display right now in the Mountain Shadows Gallery.
Wow.
And it was so much fun to go to the Meet the Artist event there and see so many former people from Riester who were there celebrating him as well.
That's great.
It's really, creative. We say as a theme for our business, creative everything.
Yeah.
And the people who really excel here are like that through their whole life.
Yeah.
Everything they do outside of here, whether it's stained glass. We have an artist here who's an amazing designer who goes home and does stained glass displays. And we have another a gentleman in our LA office who's a winemaker.
Oh, wow.
A good one.
Nice.
I mean, it's amazing that the talent that people have.
I'm kind of curious too about this from your perspective of I imagine that you hire, you're kind of in some of the dialogue of, bringing in individuals to hire, like the interpersonal side of it where you're kind of learning about them as well. I would love to do you automatically ask them, what do you do outside? What are some of the things that you ask in those interviews to get that kind of, because I can't imagine I don't know if my boss knows, but I like to highlight that I do this podcast, but I don't typically go into interviews saying I have a podcast that I do that, does interviews with local businesses. But I would love to is that something that you kind of just build and ask them and learn through the months and years that they work for you? Or is that something that you like to kind of ask right out the gate?
I think people here are generally interested in each other.
Yeah.
And the amount of time they spend together outside of here. And it's interesting because most of our lives we spend working together anyway.
Yeah.
Right? We have so few minutes outside of the office to enjoy. And when I hear how much of that time our staff chooses to spend together, it makes me feel really, really good inside.
That's great.
There are people in this room with us right now who met their spouse here.
Nice.
Right? And they have families.
Yeah.
And that's something else I really enjoy. Do I have the time to get to know everyone before they're hired and know what all their talents are? No. I wish I could be in all those meetings, and I enjoy meeting people and learning about them so much, but I just simply don't have the time to do all that. Sometimes I'm discovering amazing things about people after everyone else already knew. But it's really a fun, refreshing place to get to know the people around us and be inspired by them. I never find myself losing energy because there's so much energy in everyone around me.
Absolutely. Here. Well, before I move on to another question, I just want to bring up, now that we're talking about talents, one of your little hidden talents is I heard you're a drummer and you like, drumming. And I wanted to know where that instrumental side came from.
Well, as I mentioned, my grandfather, I don't remember if I said this before we started the interview or not, but I think I mentioned to you, he used to be a big band musician.
Yes. Sorry about that.
And I think I got that from him. He's the one who became the creative director at Ketchum. But at a very young age, I started playing percussion.
Okay.
And ended up playing in bands all through high school and college. And
did he teach you any musical bits?
No.
He didn't give you any insight?
All I remember about him when I was a kid, when we'd go visit, is he always was in a dark room. Developing photography. He really wasn't interested in it. I mean, he had
pivoted towards something else.
He just was always doing something really creative. But I occasionally get a chance to play with clients.
Yeah.
Sometimes our clients will have a band in their company.
Okay.
And then they'll invite me to come play an event or something with them.
That's cool.
For many years, Riester had its own rock band.
Oh, cool.
And it was called Sucktacular. Yeah. And in fact, Inc. 500 did an article. This is searchable. You guys can check me on this. If you go online, there's an article about Sucktacular from Inc. I mean, this is like 25 years ago. But people from the firm and I created a band.
Nice.
And at our old building, which was down on 3rd Avenue in McKinley, downtown Phoenix. And at that time, it was a real development, sort of redevelopment neighborhood. And we would set up on the grass out front and play, and homeless people would come dance with us and party. And it was really special.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that story because it really does show it's like you guys have as much fun as possible with your creative outlets. And that's something that you will really want in a firm that you're trying to like get your most creative potential out of, especially with an agency. You just want to try and make sure that people really hear and see you for your talents and what you have to bring to the table. So that's going to be my next question is I actually saw an interview in your webpage about how you want to tell the stories as you've kind of developed your own skill sets and what you do and provide here as the services for the agency, that the thing that doesn't change is the storytelling. And that's something that I'm truly fascinated about, storytelling as well. And so what is for you the kind of fun parts about being able to tell those stories? And also it's like, how proud of you are you of your own agency and everyone who's been developing these different stories?
I think storytelling is one of the greatest strengths of Riester, and it's so important that that's really in the fabric of how we began, because AI is now functioning at so much of a production level that a lot of things clients used to rely on us for, they're either doing themselves or it's automated. But it's interesting, and I say this to clients often, AI, because clients think AI, some clients think AI can do almost everything.
Yeah.
It can't.
Yeah.
AI is limited to the information it has available. And AI can pull together something interesting if it's been printed before, if it's out in the internet. But if you have a story that's been previously untold, you need a human brain to tell it.
Exactly.
And that's our sweet spot. That's where our creative everything comes to play. It's the ability to think of solutions to problems that have not yet been told and how to share those in a very interesting and creative and engaging and motivational way for our clients.
Absolutely.
And I think what makes Riester excel at that better than when I see us competing, better than other firms, we have a really, really strong research department. And digging deeper and deeper, the joy they have in that human discovery. Most firms, and because you can use AI to do surface level, like third-party research now, most firms are doing that. But getting into the real human behind a story, getting deeply into understanding a business and what's making it work or what could be creating challenges for it, requires quantitative and qualitative research, primary, right, original research that we're designing and conducting. We have our own focus group facilities here.
Oh, great.
We have full-time people where all they do is conduct research all day. And that is the magic that allows us to drill in and discover stories that can be told that were previously untold, whether it's for our higher education. Higher education is a big vertical for us. We have a lot of universities as clients.
Awesome.
Whether it's healthcare and healthcare solutions or destigmatizing a condition that people are suffering from that culturally makes them uncomfortable or people treat them. HIV, I mean, we worked on HIV AIDS on a national level for a long time to help change the treatment protocol and change the way people are perceived. And as a result, and I'm so proud of this, as a result of some of the work that we've done, today HIV is considered and treated as it's a livable disease. It used to be when you heard somebody had it, you'd say, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." It's a death sentence. And now it's like managing diabetes. So our firm has done so much work on issues like that. Sickle cell disease is one that we've just been doing the last several years.
Oh, awesome.
And the ability to help people with these conditions, it makes us all get up every morning with a lot of pride and energy to go make a difference in somebody's life.
Purpose. It's really beautiful that you guys have brought to light so many things that people take for granted or take as like you said, one side and they just don't really understand it, and bringing light to some really beautiful stories that can really change some outlooks and views of certain things. And that's really important. And I think it's also great that you work with the secondary education and in colleges, universities, because that's where I think a lot of good comes out of, when you're affecting that generation that's coming up next, or helping them develop something like an idea comes from the most minuscule part of like your infancy and going into your college years. That's where it starts to build, and you build momentum. I think if you can help that generation develop and really be able to show and highlight them, it really does make a difference when it comes down after they start making a career path and going down that career path as well. So kudos to your entire team, and to you especially, being able to hold the reins on this moving train to really develop those stories and highlight those kind of issues.
Thank you.
Absolutely. There's a couple of things that you brought up that it kind of clicked in my brain, and one that stands out is technology and how it affects a lot of businesses on all shapes and sizes and scales. And you brought up AI, and so I'd love to get your perspective, because a lot of the times people ask you, it's like, what's next, and what's the future, and what's coming up, and what are the things that I'd like to kind of focus on the positivity. Is like, what joy do you bring? Because AI can be a scary thing, but what kind of brings a positivity, and what kind of makes you smile about some of the new technologies that come with your being part of your kind of clientele and using that technology to your benefit?
One of the greatest challenges historically in our industry would be budget. Mm-hmm. And you right, with a focus on everything creative, you have a solution for a client, and you know that it could really help them, or it could help thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, but they couldn't afford to execute the idea.
Yeah.
And one of the positives we're seeing as an outcome of AI is the ability to execute some things much more affordably than we previously could.
Yes.
And so that's something that makes me really, really happy about the science and about the technology. Yeah. It's changing the industry dramatically.
For sure.
If somebody were coming into the industry today versus when I first started, I mean, honestly, when I first started Riester, you needed a can of spray mount. Mm-hmm. And it was, where are you going to spray it? Because it's going to get sticky everywhere, right? So you'd have a box.
Watch your hands.
Right? Or we used to go out in the stairwell.
Oh,
and it would all happen. And then everything, the fire escape, the handrail and everything was just coated with this stuff. But you had to, so what we'd do is we'd create these ads, and they were called paste ups. Mm. And you'd mount all this stuff with spray mount, and then it would go out to the service bureau, mm-hmm. and they'd shoot a PMT. Okay. And then the PMT, or color separations, is what would go out to be, to the newspaper, the magazine, or that kind of thing. And all this today is done electronically. Yeah. And it's better for the environment. Right?
It's better for yourself.
We're not sticking aerosol out everywhere. Nobody's getting high in the hallway. So there's so many benefits to that. Even with what you're doing today, with videotaping, our ability to use AI in the editing of this kind of footage. Mm-hmm. We used to spend a day to cut an offline, right? I'm going to use some industry terms, but for people who are watching who aren't from the industry, an offline is an initial edit of a video before it's final. Yeah. And it's just to go through and see what we have and try to get rid of the outtakes and put the better takes in. And we have AI tools now that can go through and scrape the footage, give us a transcript, and then we can use that to quickly tell it how to put together a rough cut of the video in like an hour or two instead of a day or two. And then we can put all of our energy into really making that a great final online video. Yeah. Right. And it's our ability to put the client's dollars into the final masterpiece instead of all of those initial phases that used to be required, I think really benefits the client. So that makes me very excited about technology and AI.
Well, for me, especially as someone who's a smaller practitioner and tries to do everything he can on a budget as much as possible, it really does excite me to be able to take these pieces, these new technologies, and utilize them for, again, like you said, the benefit of the client, and trying to really make sure our dollars are going in the right spots, like you said, and making sure that they get the best outcome of what we can provide as services. And man, you're absolutely right. Like it's really interesting to see that something that would have taken a week is now dwindled down to a day or two. And so it's beneficial to the little guys as well, because we pride ourselves in what we bring to the table and what we can share and what we can provide to the clients as well. But I mean, again, it's like when you're a 2-person team, you do as much as you can as fast as you can, but it doesn't always work out half the time to, say, hey, look, this might take us a couple of days. And then you realize, oh man, it's going to blow up to a week or two or something like that. So it's really great that these technologies help us save precious time.
Oh, indeed. And creatively, sometimes the challenge was illustrating for the client the vision of what we're imagining.
Yeah.
And to even comp up what we were describing could take an immense amount of time.
Yes.
So if we're saying to them, let's say we wanted to focus on Mother's Day, and we had an idea for Mother's Day, but we wanted to position mom in this, we wanted her to be an angel, but also this powerful figure. And we wanted her to be in this environment that has been totally impacted by her influence. Right. And so I'm just describing a thing. Yeah. And so now we got the client sitting there going, I don't know. I don't see what you're seeing. Now with the right prompts, we can make those descriptions to AI tools, and it will actually in seconds feed us back this background that we were just describing. And we can show a client and they'll say, oh, you guys aren't, in Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds. I mean, this is real. This will work. This is cool. Go for it.
Yeah. This is more tangible.
It makes it easier to sell creativity with AI than when we had to try to just explain something that sometimes was really hard to explain.
Yeah. So my wife and I, when we were doing research about you, we had kind of inkling of like, I brought it up. It was, you are like the Don Draper of Phoenix. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Mad Men.
Oh yeah. That was a fun show. Sure.
And so it's like,
that guy's much more handsome than I've ever been.
I'll tell you this, but it's just really funny to me. It's like, you run this business and this ad agency, and really the kind of premise came along because I saw some of the awards that you've gotten recently in the last handful of years, and with the agency it's as well getting these awards. And I'm like, well, this guy's been doing it for a long time, and it's like I've also seen these awards pop up, and I'm like, wow, this is really like something. Like, and then she had brought up, like, she moved here a decade ago, and she was like, yeah, he was here even when I moved first into town. And so to have your name highlighted for this long and to be in the works of what you do, I would like to get your perspective on just the most recent couple of awards. I know that you were also got an honorary award from the University of Arizona as well, but all of these promotion, like all of these promotional things that you bring light to your agency, but it's like, for you personally, how does that feel to get that recognition, but also trying to show light to your agency as well? It's like, I think a lot of the time there's like this level of pride for you personally because it's your name on the billboard.
Thank you. Yeah, it's this year. We won 2 awards that we won a lot of every year. The staff is amazing, and they win a lot of awards every year. Yeah, and they deserve it.
You have, like, we did a tour. You have a whole case of like awards just, nicely lined up. And I was just like, wow, that's incredible that you have this much history of like, beautiful awards. Just, it's one part impressive, but it's one part, it's cool that you guys still have the hunger for it. Cause it's one part you're showcasing it, but it's one part it's like, we're not done yet. And there's more to come.
Everyone here's in it to win it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're more committed than the client. Mm-hmm. Sometimes clients will say to me, your person was a little too pushy. and then I'll say, well, what were they pushy about?
Yeah.
Are they disrespectful of your idea, or are they advocating for your success? Mm-hmm. And as long as we're advocating for your success, it's much easier to take someone who's amazingly creative and bring them back a little than try to work with someone who's so milquetoast and so generic that you can't get them out to the area of a great idea and you're going to spend money, and it's going to be invisible among all your competition because nobody cares about sameness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I try all the time to have the clients know this passion isn't arrogance or someone who's trying to be disagreeable. They're just waking up in the middle of the night trying to help you.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's in all of the people here.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing and they don't do it to get the award. The award is just often a surprising outcome.
Yeah.
This year, I mentioned there were two I was really proud of. One of them was CA. So communication arts is the worldwide industry Bible when it comes to design for it measures all of us at the highest level.
Great.
It's next to impossible to get in. We've been in it twice in 35 years.
Nice.
And we got in this year. And what's fascinating about it is it's not something you always enter. You know, it's something that the editorial board reviews what's going on around the world and they pick what they think is the best. And then they feature it in their annual.
Yeah.
And we got in the design annual this year for communication arts. The other one that was the first ever in 35 years that we won was a drum award. As a drummer, this is really fun. It has nothing to do with it. Right. So the drum award is also a worldwide competition.
Okay.
And we won the drum award for the sustainability category.
Wow.
And it was for our client, the state of California Go Green campaign that we created.
Nice.
And I'm so proud of this campaign because the state of California created a fund to help people make energy efficiency improvements so they'd use less energy, using less coal, less demand on the power grid.
Okay.
You know, it's the power grid that creates forest fires, right?
Yep.
It's so there's so many benefits to people using less energy, but they have to have the infrastructure to use less energy. And this money was available, but the program was failing because the previous ad agency wasn't succeeding. So the client had a big review, talked to countless ad agencies, and Riester won this project.
Nice.
Created a totally new campaign, and we're 250% above the client's goal in getting these. They're basically energy efficiency loans. So it's kind of like a bank program, right? Yeah. But it's all about sustainability and sustainable lifestyles. Competing in this, we were against countries.
Yeah.
Countries' sustainability programs in the drum awards were competing against Riester.
Wow.
You know, ocean programs to clean the ocean were competing against us. Yeah. And we won the top prize in the drum awards.
That's great.
With this and it's because of the staff here in our LA office.
Again.
They're so committed to making it successful that they just didn't stop. It was like the old days in music where we had this old saying where the song isn't finished until you press the vinyl.
Nice.
Right?
I like that.
And in advertising, too often, as soon as the client says okay, people stop thinking, but not at Riester. If the client says okay, if you can still improve it, you keep trying to make it better. Yeah. And this campaign was the Go Green campaign was that kind of example.
That's beautiful. I love that because it also goes to show you too, it's like the world doesn't stop turning. The world doesn't stop, being what it is, which is an ongoing moving part of a lot of different things of, you have animal life, you have ocean life, you have all of these different things. And I feel like that environment kind of, if you show it on a level of like, you're constantly trying to make it so that it's highlighted. What your team is doing is like, what's the best way of like showing this off and showing that off? And like, how can we make this little change so that people see it a little bit better, see it a little bit more in their eyes? I mean, that'll get you to the finish line more times than not. And then, like you said, don't stop at just hearing yes. Let's keep pushing the envelope of like, there's more here. That we can make it better. We can show it off in a new light. And so that's really incredible. You guys had that opportunity and that recognition. That's really cool to be able to say that, like, even on a Go Green like level of like, wow, that's incredible. Because like you said, going against countries, going against the ocean, people fighting for the ocean. It shows what kind of dynamic individuals you have on your team, and it's really something for me that I'm kind of hearing and help me out with this. And because I am such a community involvement person and such a person of this place that we call Arizona, where I grew up, and I find it so beautiful here. And I'll also ask this of a lot of our guests is, What have you learned from being here, especially in Arizona? And what do you see as it develops into one of the top 5 largest cities in the United States? What do you see coming out of this area?
Boy, we were so lucky to come here when we did.
Mm-hmm.
I was so fortunate to open a business here when I did. There's still so many countries in the world where if you're not born into royalty
Mm-hmm.
and great wealth, you have no chance to create
Yeah.
the kind of success that you can in this country and in this state.
Yeah.
And I'm forever thankful for the opportunities Arizona's given me. Arizona is a place where for centuries, I think, was inspiring art. We can see it in the indigenous cave drawings.
Yeah.
And, you go into the canyons and see people were inspired to illustrate
Mm-hmm.
what was happening here with wildlife and nature and communities and translating that into inspiring us. It's the light.
Yeah.
We were talking at the beginning about how it's another beautiful day. Well, the way the sun rises and sets here puts light on things differently than you can see in most other communities. Yeah. And it helps you see creative opportunity
Mm-hmm.
when you see the shadow of something in a certain way that you don't see when it's too cloudy.
Yeah.
The open space, I think, has a physical effect on somebody's body in your ability to originate. Right?
Yeah.
When you're in and I know there's great energy in big cities like New York, and there are a lot of companies that are very successful in my industry there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also find it to be somewhat stifling to be somewhere where I can only see this little patch of the sky.
Yeah.
And sometimes the air's so bad that you want to kind of cover your mouth if you're going to walk outside to your taxi.
Yeah.
And here, this grand open space to me represents this infinite opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And this willingness among others to accept new ideas.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been a great place to incubate a business and for people to allow themselves to free think and share.
Beautiful. I think you're absolutely right. You hit it on the head where it's like, I think that's one of the best part about our city is the thing that we hear constantly is that openness and the ability to help one another. And there's this level of, I like to call it from a community level of what we've been talking to with the other owners is this community over competition. And that's something that I think makes us a lot different than a lot of the other larger cities who have this level of like, we have this growing entity of different cultures and different opportunities that are growing here in the city. And that infinite possibility, like you said, is shown in the space that we have development-wise throughout the city. And you can see it on a daily basis from construction to the level of art that's being put out to the level of things that are actually being brought here, like the Super Bowl. And you can feel it and see it on a routine basis here. As a community member, I feel like that's really great.
I totally agree. And when you look at what the first peoples here brought to the valley as an example, whenever you fly in, a lot of people don't know this, when they fly into Phoenix and they see that canal system.
Yeah.
It's been here 1,000 years or more.
Yeah.
People had the foresight to prepare this valley for success.
Yep.
And then we look more recently at the leaders of the valley who thought about completely revitalizing downtown Phoenix and turning it into an education mecca.
Yep.
I mean, Dr. Laddie Kaur was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he retired, I was really concerned about Arizona State. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they find Dr. Michael Crow, right, who comes in with this unbelievable new American university vision.
Yep.
And completely transforms the economy.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how many people saw the news that ASU had 191,000 enrollment for this fall.
Largest university.
Public university in the country. And the U of A is equally as, I mean, what they're doing with science and exploration and with water studies. And they're transforming the way they're turning environments into different livable communities. And They're thinking so far ahead to plan for our success. And I think that's helped us attract business. As parents, we all want opportunity for our kids so they don't have to leave, right? Yep. But to bring businesses here to create higher wage paying jobs, you have to prove you have the education infrastructure and workforce.
Yeah.
And Dr. Crow, Dr. Bobby Robbins, who's just retiring now from the U of A, the leaders in here and those before them put us in an amazing position for success here. And that's why I think we're seeing and enjoying. My business is benefiting massively from the decisions these people have made well before I ever thought of owning a business in this community.
Incredible to hear. And I 100% agree. There's this level of like history that a lot of people forget about, you know, the big hitters, I like to call them, as like you said, Core, Goldwater, Crow, some of these big names that we just hear, you know, as names, but what they did and the decisions that they make, it's really beautiful to see the outcome, especially from someone who's just, I feel like I'm in the mix of it, where I'm just trying to gather these collection of beautiful stories and highlight them. I feel like they come from somewhere. And part of that is the development of this city and how it grows and what it's bringing as far as opportunity, economy, and things like that. So I'm very much an advocate for those kind of stories and an advocate for those kind of decisions. So I would like to kind of propel ourselves to looking towards the future, as we've kind of brought up, is for yourselves, any goals or anything that you would love to highlight as kind of we reach the end of our conversation here, things that you are looking forward to or things that you yourself want to push for so that our listeners can maybe help you in that goal.
I'm really, Riester, I think for the future, is very much focused on how to leverage this incredible amount of thinking power and creativity to continue solving problems for the future, for our clients and for society, to continue creating more positive behaviors so we can enjoy each other. I think politics has become so polarizing that it's taken what used to happen in neighborhoods and made it less comfortable for people. And we want to be a part of fixing that.
Yeah.
We're so excited that one of our clients is the Citizens Clean Elections Commission.
Yes, I saw that.
And it's the work to us is as motivational as it was working on some of these chronic diseases that we've done, because we know if we can get people nonpartisan information to educate themselves and get people to show up and vote. Voting is the most powerful thing any human of age can do to impact the community for the future. I think the upcoming election is probably one of the most important I've seen in my lifetime. And our opportunity is the greatest I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And we're going to do everything we can to get everyone out and vote.
It's wonderful.
And if I can even share, I'd love to share that client's their website.
Yeah, absolutely.
azcleanelections.org. It's the one place you can go and no one's trying to manipulate you in any way.
Bipartisan.
It's bipartisan. It's just come here and get the facts and use your own intelligence to make the right decision.
Beautiful. I love that, Tim. You have got your finger on a lot of things, and I want to say thank you for allowing us to share a little bit of your history and a little bit of your beliefs and what you've been through these couple of years and decades, essentially. But I would love to just kind of leave you with the thought of, like, you have made a significant impact on not just the lives of your colleagues that you grown up with, but a lot of lives outside of these four walls. And I really do appreciate you because, again, as someone who is still in the mix of doing the stuff that we call creativity, you are someone to look at and say, hey, look, that's someone I would like to be like and someone I can idolize just a little bit more.
I'm greatly honored, and we'll keep working not to let you down.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And
before we go, I would love for you, and you may not know all of it, but if there's any information, your website name or anything that our listeners can come to reach you at, social media or anything like that you want to just share the name.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. A couple I can share. If anyone listening to this needs help for their business.
Yeah.
They can email us at newbusiness@riester.com. Riester's RIESTER.com. They can call us. It's 602-462-2261. That goes right to my assistant, Leanne.
Nice.
And I also want to ask people if they're interested. We talked about the environment and the importance the environment has on our lives and the way we enjoy life. If people are interested, look at RiesterFoundation.com.
Nice.
We own our own foundation. We have for more than a decade. And we take a portion of the profits every year from our work to honor our clients by putting it back into animals and the environment.
Beautiful.
And we think animals and environment can't advocate for themselves. So we want to advocate and use our talents to help them.
I love that.
So that website will share a lot of the projects we work on and give people a chance to participate.
I love that. Thank you again, Tim. And I really do appreciate your time. We do have an outro for ourselves. You can hear every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. All of our social media is under Finding Arizona Podcast. And last but not least, we end our conversations always with the kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends. And we will see you next time.